Welcome back to another episode of Mastering MetaHuman. In today's episode, we're going to be focusing on the DNA calibration toolset more so than we did in last week's episode when we were dealing with the DNA viewer, and we're going to be dialing into how we could change the actual DNA of our metahumans. Now, the DNA calib library was initially written in C++, but does have a Python wrapper, which will allow us to use it within the Python script editor within Maya. However, if you do have experience with C++, you could obviously use it with C++ in your own programs and pipelines, but it will also help for reading the header files and the different program files that they have on their GitHub, which will allow you to understand more so the different commands that you could be using and the different parameters that are inputting into these different class methods. Now with that, let's get started. I'll add a link to the GitHub pages in the description down below, but we're going to start off by looking at the MetaHuman DNA calibration examples. We go in here and we go down to DNA calib demo. You're going to see a lot of code in here that kind of talks about the basic setup that you're going to be using for almost every single pipeline that uses the DNA calibration. Now I've put this into Maya, so let's pop over to Maya. Alright, and now let's run through what this code actually does. First, start off by doing is importing a couple of OS libraries to allow us to manipulate different file paths and different things on the actual operating system. From there, we're going to set up our root project directory and our output directory where we're going to want to output the DNA files. Then we're going to select our character name. This is just identifying the name of the actual DNA file we're going to be working with. And our data directory, character directory, and output directory. Here we're also specifying the naming of both of these files if you wanted to change those as well. From here, we're doing a few more imports from the DNA and the DNA calib libraries. You can see a few of these end with command. These will have a direct relation to the API that we're going to be referencing later in the video. And now we're going to get into the functions. So first off, we're going to be creating a stream and reader to load the actual DNA, allowing us to work with it and manipulate it. Then we're going to have another function to save the DNA that we're reading after we make those changes to it. Then there's going to be a build command list. This is where all the magic happens. Here you could add a bunch of different commands to do whatever you want to the DNA. By default, they have a few functions in here that are dealing with manipulating, different vertex matrices and the deltas on different skins. Right now, I just kept in the scale command and the rename joint command to keep things a little bit more simple and easier to comprehend how things are moving. Then you have the calibrate DNA, which is sort of the main function. It loads all the other functions within it and executes them in a proper hierarchy, as well as putting in the DNA calib DNA reader on the DNA that is loaded to have the calibrated DNA that we could then work on off of. Then at the bottom, we're just creating that output directory. If it's existing already, cool. If not, we're going to create that output directory so we have a location to output to. And then we are calling the calibrate DNA function, which is going to take in the character DNA and output DNA that we identified at the top of the file. Now, let's just run it to see how it plays out at the moment. If I go up to the top here and just hit this double play button, this is the execute all command. Should take about a minute, maybe two, depends on your machine. Alright, once you see that done at the bottom there, if we open up that folder structure again, go to the output folder, we're going to see this ADA output.dna file. We then go to our DNA viewer that we were using in the last video. Go ahead and jump back to that one if you need any help with this section. But this is going to be how we are loading the actual DNA into our Maya scene. So we're going to go to this little ellipses, and it will be in our output, ADA output.dna. Click load DNA, select all meshes, both of these, skin cluster, GUI path will be in the data, GUI.ma, analog GUI path, and additional assembly script path. Once you have all that, the rig logic will become enabled and you can go ahead and process your rig. Alright, once that's complete, we can go ahead and exit out of this, minimize this, zoom on out, and we're going to see the file is here. We go ahead and move around the eyes, make sure that the rig updates properly in the scene, and it does. Go ahead and move the jaw. Cool. Now we could open this up and see a couple of the changes that we made in our DNA. First and foremost, if we go up to that build command, we're going to see the command rename joint command. We renamed joint index 0 to wicked awesome new joint name. Now, you could either input it with the index of the bone or the actual name of it, but it executes faster if you're using the actual index. We also use the scale command to scale the mesh up. You could do it down, up, whatever you need to get the fit for your body skeleton. Now, what you could do is go to this commands page on the GitHub for the DNA calibration, and you can see it has all the different functions that you could be using, or the class methods that you could access to manipulate your DNA. So if we go into the rename mesh command, for example, we could open up this header file and see the void set name takes in a uint16t value with a const char name. So we could just input a string and a number index for the actual mesh. Or alternatively, also like the joint, you could put in the old name of the mesh and then the new name. Now this is where I said it might be helpful if you know how to read these different header files or you have some experience with C++. There's going to be some that are a little bit more hard to read and you can't just pick it up as easily, especially when you're working with different matrices and different delta values on all these different vertices. But everything's here. If you have the experience and you have the time, dig through it and you could make your MetaHuman whatever you want it to be. That being said, if we take this rename mesh command and open up Maya again, open up that file that we were working in, and we could go ahead and do another commands.add, type in that function name, we'll put it in 0, we'll call this the best mesh, right? We go ahead, we'll add a little print statement at the end too. Added command to rename mesh. We go ahead and execute this one more time. Let's clear the scene real quick too. And once that wraps up, you go ahead and run your DNA viewer. Go ahead and locate that DNA file again. Should be in the output, ADA output, load file, select all meshes, boom. GUI path, GUI, analog GUI path, and the script path. Spin close to rig logic, process. Alright, then we can minimize, open this up again, scroll to the top, see our mesh. Everything's still working as intended. If we go up to the head rig, geometry, head LOED, we have the best mesh, right? Now this is just a very simple minor change, but you could have complete control over the joint position for every different blend shape, the fax poses. You could drive anything you want by using the DNA calib library within the MetaHuman. You're looking to have the most control over your MetaHumans while maintaining efficiency and having the most robust fidelity rigs and everything with the pipeline. I would highly recommend learning the DNA calib toolset and building your pipeline from scratch. Now, there are plenty of amazing tools being developed by people like Meshmorpher or Arts and Spells and their MetaPipe plugin, which I'm going to be jumping into in a very near future episode as well. That's going to be it for today's video. If you want me to break down specific commands within DNA Calib and really dive into anything that you're having trouble with, let me know. I'd be happy to make a video on it. For now, I think I'm going to be focusing my efforts on more broader tools that are more applicable to more people. With that, I'm going to be showing you how to use Art and Spell's MetaPipe plugin for Maya to help you customize your MetaHumans in a different way. One of the more out-of-the-box solutions that I previously mentioned in this video. So, thank you so much for watching, keep learning, and I'll see you next time.